Welcome to the Cold Case Christianity broadcast, the only Christian case-making program hosted by a cold case homicide detective. J. Warner Wallace has been investigating cold case murders in Los Angeles County for over a decade. His work has been featured on Fox News, Court TV, and Dateline. For more information about Jim's work and the case for Christianity, please visit coldcasechristianity.com. Now, here's your host, J. Warner Wallace.
Thanks for joining us at Cold Case Christianity. I'm J. Warner Wallace. Okay, last week we started a 2-week series on how we as older folks in the church, parents, and as the older members of our Christian family, can help younger members of the Christian family to stand firm in what they believe, to prepare them to withstand the challenges they're going to face in university. And how do we do that? Well, I gave you some principles last week on how to do that, why it's important for us to get in the game, 4 ways to help your young people hold on to what they believe. But this week, I'm going to leave one of those points last week was the fourth point was you've got to provide transformational experiences. I told you last week that we got to do these 4 things. Number 1, we have to become the source of information, the source of answers for our students. We can't allow somebody else to be the best Christian case maker they know, the best Christian apologist. We need to become good Christian apologists for our kids. I also told you we need to be able to talk about these issues and find opportunities, teachable moments to talk about what we believe as Christians with our young people. And third, we've got to find relevant mentors and role models for our students that maybe are a little bit closer to their age, and that's why I think youth pastors can do a great service for us. But I also know in my own family, I knew many people who were 10 or 15 years younger than me who had a strong connection to my kids, who were able to role model, to show them what Christianity looks like at different ages of life. And fourth thing, we've got to provide transformational experiences for our students. And that is what today's show is all about. Now, about 2 months ago, I did a broadcast here at NRB and a podcast that goes along with it, kind of talking about this same issue, how to turn teaching into training. But I decided to show you what this looks like in my presentation that I give to churches. So I've got a video lined up for today. I don't often do this, but I'm going to try today to show you a video from a church in Green Bay Community Church, where I talked to the congregation about the strategy that helps you to turn teaching into training and prepare young people. Now, I can tell you that, like most churches, they did a great job of recording this, but it's not an HD job of recording it. It's more of a kind of a lower quality video, but I think it's more than sufficient to be able to help you to walk through the process with me. And also, I'm providing this video because it actually has the media that I use when I do the presentation. So you'll see some imagery that will, I think, hopefully help you to see what I'm trying to talk about. And typically when I talk about these issues on a podcast or on this broadcast, they're not as heavily illustrated. So now you'll see the illustrated version of this talk, okay? So I hope it makes some sense to you and actually helps you to see the difference between teaching and training. And on the back side of the video, before we sign off for this week, I'll have some closing thoughts. I'll see you then at the end of this video on how to turn teaching into training. So when people ask me, how do you solve this problem? I always say the same thing, and I've been writing about it for years on the website. Stop teaching. Oh my gosh, it's not that, just stop teaching. Teaching is not working. The church has been teaching for 100 years here in America, and apparently it's not working. We've got great teachers in the church, but we've got to stop teaching young people. It's doing us no good. We've got to start training. And training is different than teaching. Training is I want to illustrate the difference between teaching and training so you can catch it, okay? So let's divide this in half. Teaching is just about imparting knowledge. You know, blah, 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 blah. This is this, wah, 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 wah. Got it? We've all been in front of good teachers, but we're like, I'm trying to stay awake. I hope that's not you guys this morning. Okay? Now, the other issue, of course, is training is different than this. Training is preparing for a battle that's about to become. Boxers train. Fighters train. Athletes train. Why? Because there's a game on Sunday. Why? Because there's a fight in 8 weeks. You will train if you know a challenge is coming. If you told all of your students that they don't have to take a test, you're all in algebra class, trust me, you're all going to get A's, don't worry about it, there's no tests in this class. Just listen to me while I teach you algebra. How many people in that class do you think are actually going to learn algebra? Okay, 0. No test coming. No point in training, no point in paying attention. Here's a guy who lives in our city, or did at least one time. He's got a dojo there. His name is Royce Gracie. I don't know if you know him or not, but he won four of the first 5 Ultimate Fighting Championships. My son has been to his dojo. I remember the first time he went to this dojo, he came home and he had a huge lump on his hip. My son's a police officer. And I said, oh my gosh, and he would go and he'd get beat up again. And when he would come home, he would have these bumps and cuts on his face. And I used to say, why do you continue to go? He says, because it takes him a little bit longer each time to make me look this way. And as far as cops go, sometimes all fights are going to go to the ground at some point. And you just may have to hang on long enough for your backup to get there. So how long you can hang on is important. This guy, you think this guy trains? Yeah, why does he train? Because he's got a fight coming. It turns out the fight that's coming is what turns teaching into training. Because now you're taking it very seriously. And this guy takes his work very seriously. So I want to share with you a paradigm that I think would change the way we do youth ministry and change the way we even think about our own religious education. It's a train model. And it's not that hard to grasp. Of course, it's an acronym because we are all pastors at heart and we like acronyms. You do these 5 things, and I think everything changes. The first thing we have to do is we have to test young people. You got to find out where they're at. Everyone gets a test. This is the Crest Bar in my city. It's a biker bar, and I guarantee you there's a fight here every night. And if you're a trainee, a rookie who's got a field training officer, you're going to buy that call because every fight call is going to send a training car because that training car is going to get there, and the training officer is going to do this to see if you, as the rookie, can handle a bar fight. Because you got to test everybody. By the way, if you can't handle a bar fight, we're going to fire you. Because we don't want to get killed later on. Every night when this turns into a nightmare, we're going to send a training card to see if the officer can pass the test. Now, it's not like we're trying to be mean. We're trying to, if nothing else, if he fails the first test, he'll start getting ready. He'll go back and he'll train. He'll be at that dojo getting beat up tomorrow because he wants to pass the test the next time. Tests are incredibly important for officers. They're also incredibly important for students. When I first get asked to work with youth groups, let me tell you what I do. I ask the pastor to introduce me as the local professor of philosophy at whatever big university is close by. And I will come in and role play as an atheist. I don't want the students to know who I am. Because in that hour, my goal is to deconvert everyone in the room. And you would be amazed at how fast it happens. Because as I start pushing these buttons as an atheist, the students cannot really respond. And all the joy you might have when you first show up, it turns into expressions that are not so good. Because at the end of this, we literally have students who, when I finally reveal that I'm actually a Christian, they'll come up and they'll say, thank God, I was starting to wonder if any of this was true. Wow. You mean to tell me, after all that we've done as parents, in 30 minutes, in a role-playing scenario, I could shake you that bad? Oh yeah, we've seen it over and over again. My son, who's 26, he's an excellent role player. When he does it, it's really powerful because he's closer to their age. It's very powerful. You have to test students the same way why do I start this way? I start this way because now they know their need. Did that feel good? No. Would you like to be in a situation where you could do better? Yes. Well, the next 6 weeks, we're going to train you to do better. And that's what we do. But they won't even pay attention if I don't show them how bad the situation is to begin with. So I test my students before I start. The second thing I have to do, of course, is you have to be ready to require something more than we typically require of our students. Hey, I was a youth pastor in a medium-sized church that was actually affiliated with a church plant that Troy did. He's been a part of a church that was a sister church of my church in California. And I can tell you, when I was first a youth pastor, I had a certain view of youth ministry, okay? And I did not require a lot from my students. I was happy if they just showed up. Have a good time here, want to come back and bring your friends. For me, youth ministry, as I was trying to think it out and plan it out, was all fun and games, okay? Youth ministry looked a lot like this: pizza, video games. Good stuff, important stuff, but that was all we were doing, really. Our students can handle so much more. I mean, think about what we ask of our students as parents. We've got them in AP courses. They're getting ready for college. Oh my gosh, the bar is super high in other areas of their life, and you as a parent have no problem with the bar being high there. But when it comes to religious education, show up, we're happy. That's what's got to change. And you might think, well, how much can kids handle? I wanted to show you, this is my family when I first started as a youth pastor. I have my daughters and my sons. My sons came along first, and then we adopted 2 girls out of foster care. This is Annie and Mia. So we have a kind of a range of ages here. And my boys were in their, junior high years, 12 and 10, when my girls were still in elementary school. Well, they wouldn't stay with their affinity groups, They wouldn't go to Sunday school. They wanted to sit with their parents in the youth room with all the high schoolers. So I would let them come. And they would sit on the laps of all the high school students and just hang out with the high school students. And I was teaching the high school students at a college level because I wanted them to grab the evidences for Christianity. I made a case every week for Christianity, and I responded to all the atheist objections to Christianity, but I was doing it at a pretty high level. These kids, while they were hanging out with us, caught all of it. And I'm not targeting these guys. You'd be amazed at what young people they'll raise up. If we'll set the bar high, they'll jump that high bar. So all my sons and daughters, they caught all of this stuff. I call it ricochet apologetics, right? I wasn't aiming at them. It bounced off the other students, and they caught it. So now that they're older, and here they are as adults, or close to adults, they are all pretty solid. At least they know. Now look, if they're going to want, I always say this, if your students want to chase stupid stuff in college, that's on them. If they're chasing this stupid stuff on college because we didn't prepare them, that's on me. I've prepared them. Doesn't mean they're going to stay because there's that third circle, right? That's the problem. But we want to require more of our students. Third thing, you got to give them something. You got to equip them with something. You got to give them a tool, give them the truth, arm them with the case so they know what the positive case is for Christianity. We got to do that. You wouldn't give police officers no weapons or no tools and you go out and ask them to do their job. As a matter of fact, we give them a bunch of tools. And not only do we give them a bunch of tools, we give them a bunch of training on how to use the tools. We do 2 things. We give them tools and the training to use the tools. That's how you arm police officers. Well, think about it. We have students. How are we equipping them? How are we arming our students? What are we doing with these folks? I suggest we've got to inoculate them before they leave here. Don't isolate your students from the truth. Don't isolate your students from all the objections. Instead, a flu inoculation is what? You give them a little bit of the flu, and then later on when they're exposed to all the flu, they've already been inoculated because they saw it early. They got it early under your supervision. What we're doing with inoculation theory in the church is we're trying to give our young people the truth early. Don't be afraid of philosophy. This passage, sometimes Christians will look and say, we don't want to get involved in secular philosophy. See to it that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deception according to the tradition of men, according to the elementary principles of this world, rather than according to Christ. This is not an admonition for us to avoid teaching our students philosophy. It's an admonition to teach them philosophy according to Christ and not get caught up in the philosophy and tradition of men. So I'm going to teach my students philosophy and logic and all the evidences for why Christianity is true and why atheism can't be true. And when we're done, they'll be inoculated. And I'm going to begin in my care by making sure they're aware of every atheist text that's popular in the culture.